Listen, I'm not a big Jack Edwards guy, but what a call, because he's right. The Leafs looked terrible tonight. They looked disengaged, couldn't get the forecheck going to save their lives. They're losing puck battles. The power play, a mess. Just 1 for 14 in this first round. And of course, Marner losing the battle in front, complaining to the refs, just no fight. But the boiling point was this moment on the bench. Matthews upset at what people thought was Marner, and then Nylander clearly saying, "Stop fucking crying, bro." And with the game Marner had, where he was just, not a great night for him, many people assumed Matthews was pissed at Marner here. But does it really look like he's looking at Marner? To me, it looks like he's looking at Nylander. That's what I think everyone's getting wrong about this, because Nylander does say, "Stop fucking crying, bro." But what he says next is not what is floating around the internet. I'm pretty sure he says, "This is the fucking issue. Guys fucking pissed about shit." Now, at the end of the day, clearly everything is not right in paradise regardless of what he said and who he said it to, but this does change the narrative. As a Penguins fan, it reminded me a lot of the 2017 playoffs where Kessel and Malkin were barking at each other for almost the entire second period. That Penguins team wound up winning the cup that year. And no, I'm not saying that's going to happen for the Leafs, but I do think this is an important moment. It's either the beginning of this group breaking through a barrier and really communicating with each other and holding each other more accountable, or it's the beginning of the end and this core gets split up. And again, while Marner got much of the blame, it seems like he's still got a high ankle sprain. But it's also been food poisoning for Matthews, who didn't finish this game, migraines for Nylander, who made his first appearance this game. It's been questionable goaltending, fairly piss poor coaching in my opinion. And so, pick your poison. But this is bigger than one guy. And sometimes it just comes down to the other team being better. And I think the Bruins are simply better. Because Toronto had their chances this game. Just 3:42 in, the Bruins got called for too many men. Toronto to the power play, and it was bad immediately. On the defensive, if anything, the Bruins were aggressive and easily killed it off, with the Leafs getting just one shot on goal. Then later in the period, it's Maroon and Edmondson both called for roughing, which would get us a 4-on-4. But with Brody then drawing a penalty, McAvoy called for a slash here, would get Toronto back on the power play. And so now with a 4-on-3 opportunity, Tavares loses the faceoff, Nylander can't get the puck, and the Bruins send it down the ice. So how about we try that again? This time, they win the faceoff, but Tavares is trying to get this puck to Nylander. And with Matthews way up here, they end up losing the zone anyway. This is where coaching comes in. They played this like there was 10 seconds remaining on the clock. It's a 4-on-3. You have space and time. You just win this faceoff, get possession, and go to work. There's no reason to rush this, and your only objective being Nylander gets the puck, gets it to Matthews, and the one-timer. Not getting anything done on the power play really seemed to kill their mojo, and sure enough, it wasn't long after the Bruins pinch. Reeves coughs it up right to Van Riemsdyk, who scores. A former Leaf to make it sting even more. And who's at fault here? It's easy to say it's Reeves, but Lowry makes a great decision to pinch. He forces this turnover. And yes, Reeves coughs it up, but it was a great read from Lowry to begin with. And more so, what is this from Samsonov? You could drive a semi through that gap as the Bruins would take a 1-goal lead. And as Marchand does, he'd finish the period with a low hit on Bertuzzi. But yeah, while the first wasn't great, the second was a nightmare. A battle in the corner and Domi gets called for a cross check. This would put the Bees on the power play. And so on the kill, Marner doesn't make a block here. Then a weak effort going to his left when the puck is actually to his right is a poor decision. But in the process, he also lost his position at the top of the diamond. And so with McAvoy recognizing this, sees the Leafs are now forced to collapse, feeds Marchand, and it's a 2-goal game as Marchand, with a beautiful one from below the dot, rifles it home and becomes the all-time Bruins leader in playoff goals. But yeah, that's where we then got this. Toronto in the zone, Nylander with it, and instead of getting the puck on net, he opts to attempt the pass, which got broken up. Then shortly after, it's Marner in front, catching a slight breeze, goes down and not engaged. He's barking at the ref, complaining instead. And from this is where the drama on the bench ensued. So, was Matthews upset at Marner? He very well may have been, but I think he was specifically upset at Nylander here. Now, I'm not sure if it's because he wanted the puck on net here or what it was, but either way, obviously he wasn't happy. And just a few moments after that, it's Marner again, gets turned around and just not able to make an effective play. It certainly wasn't pretty, and with a dagger, Marchand chips it past Brody for Pasta, and they score again, completely leaving Samsonov out to dry. Yes, Brody ends up giving it up, but he's also the only player even back to play at all. Now, going into the third, we did get a goalie change, Wall coming in, and while I thought the Leafs came and battled much harder, Lyubushkin catching a bar here, ironically, it was Marner with a beautiful play to his backhand who would score their only goal of the game. I mean, of course he does. Catching heat from everybody in the second intermission, guys like Biz and Harudi letting it go, he wound up having the Leafs' sole goal of the game. But yeah, this team just doesn't have it right now. Nylander with 9 to go, 2-goal game, takes a stupid penalty, which killed the clock, and yeah, they were swallowed up the rest of the game as the Bruins played a great road game and took game 4 on the road in Toronto. Now, I expect Toronto to come out hard for the 5th game, but honestly, I think they're toast. You guys let me know your thoughts down below, though. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Spring into savings this moving season with Pods.
Oh my hockey gods. We just witnessed an NHL playoff collapse of epic proportions. You may remember earlier this season, I made a video on the Predators losing this game. It was 2-1, 15 seconds remaining, and somehow the Predators found a way to end up losing this game in regulation, 3-2 to Dallas. Now, that was one of the craziest chokes I have ever seen. But today, on the biggest stage that is the NHL playoffs, the Predators may have just topped it. See, coming into this game, not only were the Vancouver Canucks already down their starting goalie due to injury prior to puck drop, it was announced that their backup, Casey DeSmith, who had only played 2 games himself, was now also injured. So Vancouver was down to their 3rd-string goalie, Artur Shilovs, on the road in Nashville in one of the toughest barns in the league. Not ideal. And the Predators were dominant. They played what was likely their best game of this series. And so, with the Canucks down bad late in this game, it looked all but over. Hughes thought it was over. The Predators Preds bench thought it was over, and yet it was not. But let's quickly see how we got here. It was actually the Canucks in the first. Off an offensive zone faceoff, Soucy for Miller finds Boeser, and they would score. Not 3 minutes into the game, it was Boeser on their first shot of the game to take the early lead, but it was quickly downhill from here. While the Predators would get called for interference, Forsberg knocking down the giraffe who is Myers, just 4 seconds into the power play, the Canucks would get called for interference as Lindholm would go to the box, which gave us some 4-on-4 action, where the Canucks honestly kind of dominated initially, but Hughes bobbling the puck would allow the Preds to gain possession, and D2D, Lauzon fires it, and they score. Jankowski in front gets credited for it as the Predators, answering back immediately, run over Pettersson in the process, bowling over him in the celly. But we now had a tied hockey game, and with less than 3 to go, O'Reilly up for Carrier in alone, and he's shut down by Sheloffs. It remained a tied hockey game going into the second, where a big save on one end leads to a 2-on-1 the other way. Nyquist keeps it and rips it home for his first of the playoffs, firing at glove side to beat Sheloffs and take their first lead of the game just 5 minutes into the period. And while the Canucks did get a few good looks, just catching some iron here, they couldn't get one to go as both Saros and Sheloffs on the other end stood tall. And so while that was it for the second in the goals department, right at the end, puck wasn't even dropped and there was a scuffle. Sissons and Bluger would end up getting called for roughing, which meant we started the third, once again 4-on-4. And once again, the Predators press. Josi shot, rebound, and they score. Josi throwing the puck into the blue paint, catches Forsberg's skate, and I don't know, is this a kicking motion? Either way, no challenge, and just 12 seconds into the third, the Predators now had their third to make it a 2-goal game. So you better believe the Predators faithful were celebrating. And the Preds outshot the Canucks all 3 periods with several chances to extend the lead as Sheloffs held on. So the Canucks were in a tough spot, struggling to get a puck on net, weren't looking particularly dangerous, and again had only 16 shots this game with under 4 to go. It was bleak. But with 3:20 to go now, Canucks pull their goalie. And it's Hughes walking the line to Miller in front for Lindholm. He finds Boeser and they score. Brock Boeser with his second of the game off some pretty passing as Saros nearly gets this one. But the Canucks were now within just 1 with plenty of time. Then with just 2 to go, they pull their goalie again. This time though, it's turned over. Sissons with it, and to seal the deal, he hits the post. Hughes all but knew this was the end, but going off the far post, the Canucks stay alive. The Predators bench even had the early celebration as, I mean, you gotta be kidding me. But a minute 20 to go now, Shiroff's out again, and as time was ticking away, the Predators would clear it twice. In the final seconds now, it's Miller's shot, rebound, Boeser, side of the net, but he recovers and they score again. With 8 seconds remaining, it's Brock Boeser again with his third of the game to tie it up and force overtime. Unfreaking believable. Now this starts with Hughes a little shimmy to lose Nyquist, which opened up space in the process, and the rest was history, as the Canucks somehow complete the comeback to force overtime, while an absolutely stunned crowd watched on. And so, of course they would. It was just a minute in. Garland behind the net finds Lindholm in front and they score. Blocker side on Saros, it's his second of the playoffs as Elias Lindholm makes his presence felt and the Canucks come all the way back to win this game. They're just the 8th team in NHL history to erase a 2-goal deficit with under 2 minutes to go and win. An Unbelievable meltdown from the Predators, who were seconds away from a 2-2 series, and instead they now have to go back to Vancouver down 3-1. You gotta love the playoffs. But yeah, that's about it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, Johnny, Gus has a very tricky putt for birdie. Oh, wait, this is something new.
It's the new cash blowout from the PA Lottery.
The New York Rangers just defeated the Washington Capitals in Game 4 to complete their series sweep, making them the first team to move on now to the second round of the NHL playoffs. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but we've got a few lasts or potential lasts tonight. I saw some Caps fans speculating that this could be the final game of TJ Oshie's career. I don't know. I mean, he's got a lot of wear and tear on his body, a ton of injuries. He played 52 games this season, had his worst production of his career. However, he still has 1 year left on his contract, and it's worth $5.75 million. So I don't think he's going to retire outright. Maybe he'll go on LTIR, but I don't think so. However, it is, more than possible that we've seen the final playoff game of Alexander Ovechkin's career. And even if we haven't, we've seen the last playoff game that I will care to watch. Ovechkin was less than invisible this series. He actively harmed his team. In 4 games, he had no points, 5 shots. They were limiting his time this game. I don't know. That sucks. Yes, he's old as well, but you're supposed to play for the guys. He just doesn't care. And it's not just age, because there are little things that don't cause that much extra energy to do, like to keep your stick on the ice. He's just not there. And to me, games like this affect how I see him, and that stinks. Ovechkin has 2 more years on his contract. He's got a $9.5 million cap hit. Obviously, his play doesn't justify that. The team is built around him trying to get the scoring record, and I just don't see them returning to the playoffs. And honestly, even though it ended up being an easy first series for my team, I wish that it had been the Penguins, the Red Wings, or the Flyers in there as well, just from an entertainment standpoint. And from a memorable standpoint, none of these games were entertaining. None of them were fun. The Caps played probably the best in Game 4, but I can't say I was ever worried. Anyway, that's my take on the series. The Rangers sweep and are the first team through to play the winner of Carolina and the Islanders. I'm curious about your philosophy, though, and I don't think that the Carolina Islanders series will go 7 games, but if it does the extra time off the Rangers have serve as a benefit, or is it almost better to come into this series without too much time off? Anyway, let me know your thoughts on all this and more down below.